It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, sponsored by Thompson Sales, Fast Break Sports, and The Pitch. Here's your host, Scott Purrier.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Purrier. As always, certainly appreciate you for tuning in with us today. We've got a couple guests we're going to hit on this week's podcast and a couple of events coming up in the Ozarks, and we'll talk about those. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Fast Break Sports, The Pitch Pizza and Pub, and Thompson Sales. We'll talk more about all three of those a little later on in the podcast. And our first guest is a friend of mine that runs a great business here in the Ozarks with sports mental coaching, but she also has an annual event that we like to bring her on to talk about for the Chuck Wiley Foundation. We introduced Angie Wiley back to the podcast. Angie, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. So it's that time of year again for the Chuck Wiley, and I guess it never ends with that, right? Because of preparation and entries and enrollment. Kind of tell the people a little bit about the tournament and what the dates are. Let's start out with that. What the sites and dates for this year?
Awesome. All right. So it is the Chuck Wiley tournament, and it's going to be July 11th through the 13th. We will open up on the 11th with a Friday night opening ceremonies down at Ozark Mountain Stadium. This will be our third year for the Friday night opening ceremonies, and that's been a really fun addition to bring everyone together to kick the tournament off.
And then you've got a little site change on some of the tournament games this year due to some construction.
We do. Cooper and Killian are under construction. They're getting turf. And so that's a great thing, but it's bumped us from those locations this year. And those really have been our primary locations for the youth division. And so it's going to push us to mostly being at Metter, and then we'll be out at Fordland. And then high school division is played in, some of the small colleges and high school fields around the Springfield area.
So we start at what age on the bottom side? 8 or 9 or what?
Yeah, 9 years old. Yes. Yeah.
And if there's coaches out there that want to get signed up for it, how do they do that?
Yeah, we are still taking registrations for all ages. And so you can just go to the Chuck Wiley Athletic Foundation.com. And registration for the tournament is right there. So you can click on it, register for any team, any age.
And of course, yeah, what a great organization you formed in honor of your late husband, Chuck Wiley, who himself was a tremendous baseball player. Kind of talk about the foundation, what was the driving force behind it and what it does.
Okay, so driving force behind it is, Chuck and I both were college athletes, grew up as athletes. And then, of course, we raised our family, in the athletic world, and our kids were in sports. And we were blessed and fortunate and able to help, people along the way, because I think, as many of you know out there, youth sports comes with a price. And so really when Chuck passed, it was just to keep that going and his giving spirit going, we formed the Athletic Foundation. And the purpose of that is we scholarship athletes in need. And so there's an application process on that website that I mentioned, but we can support athletes, families to keep athletes involved. And obviously, just being in sports is near and dear to me. I know what it does, the developmentally for our youth. And it's so important that, it shouldn't just be a privilege to keep kids in sports. We want to try to keep, all kids in sports and give them that opportunity, because it develops you in so many different ways. And so, so we offer that scholarship. It could be anything from helping someone get a bat and glove, or, and we do help all sports, all the way to, volleyball dues for the year. So we kind of really so far have run the gamut of where we're able to help keep athletes involved.
And it's so expensive now. Everything's expensive, travel, restaurants, all of it. There are kids very talented kids that the families maybe just don't have the means. And those are the ones that you're trying to reach out to and say, hey, we can help, right?
Yes, absolutely. You do have to show financial need to qualify for a scholarship, obviously. So once we have that in place, then we do have a board in place. We've got guidelines that are going to be getting a little more tightened up this year, just because we are also moving under our own umbrella of a own 501c3, whereas up until now and even through the end of this year, we will be operating still under the umbrella of Community Foundation of the Ozarks. But the foundation has grown so much that we are having to branch out and become a standalone nonprofit.
Very good. And again, that website that people can learn more about the tournament and the foundation.
Chuck Wiley Athletic Foundation.com.
And Facebook page too.
Yes,
well, right?
Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram. So you can find us. You can find us that way as
Awesome.
well. Yeah.
Well, and as I mentioned, our purpose for bringing Angie on each year is twofold, because she is the founder, director, operator of You Are Strong, a sports performance, mental coaching business here in the Ozarks. And how long have you been doing that now?
Well, I started part-time in 2014, really. So, over 10 years, but I did go full-time with it in 2021.
And your background was a former basketball standout at Buffalo High School and went on to play at Pittsburgh State, correct?
Yes, correct.
Was there a JUCO stop in there too?
It was a JUCO stop in there, Johnson County. So 2 years there and then finished out at Pitt State.
And what led you to start You Are Strong back then?
Wow. So even, coming out of college and just me, that athletic experience, I saw, and this was obviously many, many years ago, but saw how much the mindset impacted performance, but yet it really wasn't taught. I have a minor in psych, looked at sports psychology all the way back then, but of course, then I was told there's no jobs. So I've always had a passion for it. And so really that never left me. I ended up in medical device sales and sales management, which served my competitive spirit. But as I saw my kids in youth sports, that just kind of kept coming back. And so that's why I started it part-time in 2014, was to really get intentional and start teaching it, because to me, I think those are the most important things that are taken away from youth sports, right? Is the mindset, because it links us to every part of our life.
I know your son Logan in particular was an outstanding high school pitcher at Kickapoo, went on to pitch collegiately. Was he willing to listen to mom in those days and still, or not?
He was. He had mom and dad in his ear.
Nice. That's why there's 2 ears, right?
Right. Yeah, we both had one. So yeah, he was good about listening.
You started this, you said, around 2014 or so. How much have things changed in your approach and maybe the areas you dive into with athletes now versus back when you first started? Has it changed much, or is it still the same message?
Gosh, it's a deeper message just because I've done it so much longer now, right? And, with experience probably and life comes depth. And so I feel like when I started out, I was probably more, I was doing boot camps, and I would have athletes for a short term, maybe bring them in for a camp, and I was teaching them the principles, trying to give them something to walk away with. But now I actually take athletes. My goal is to have athletes long-term, because the way we think and how we respond emotionally is a habit, and it takes 60 plus days to change a habit. So I have an 8-week program where it's like deep dive with the athletes to really make sure that we see that transformation and that they're seeing change, because that's going to come out in performance.
And I would imagine that kids now, social media can't help the mental state of a lot of these kids. I know a lot of coaches probably tell their athletes just stay off of it, and then you couple in with the travel, the year-round training in some sports. What are some common themes that you first hear from a parent? Hey, I'd really like you to work with my kid. What are they expressing that are their concerns that you can address? So,
I've even had a parent call and say, this is a 911 call. So sometimes I'm the desperation call. Yeah. But, so many competitive athletes out there, they have the expectation that they're supposed to be perfect. And some of that may come from that comparison game, right, of social media. You're looking at everyone else's highlight reel. And so anytime there's a mistake, then They tend to just downward spiral. They'll beat up on themselves. I'm not good enough. Why can't I, do, this or that, whatever it is. And so there's a lot of perfectionism out there in competitive sports. And so they just have to learn how to redirect that and look at it in a different way. That's, probably one of the bigger things. And then just frustration around mistakes. And when they end up in that state, then it's sometimes it's hard for them to get out of it. And we hear it in the sports world, right? I'm in a slump and I can't get out of it. I feel stuck. And so a lot of times that's when I get the athlete.
Is burnout pretty common, a common topic for you to talk with a lot of these athletes now?
It is. And burnout comes with pressure too, right? And then, you kind of alluded to, it's like, it's nonstop, it's year round. And so burnout is absolutely a real thing. And we work through that as well. And some of that, we may not be able to change the number of practices, the amount of time, things like that. But what we shift is the mindset and making sure that they're giving themselves that mental break and the mental space that they need to recover.
What's a comfortable young age that you feel like you can have an impact and start working with young athletes?
In general, I say middle school through high school. Now, I will say I've had highly competitive athletes at 9. Now, when I work with a 9-year-old, mom and dad are sitting right there with them. Right. So I'm not working one-on-one with an athlete at the age of 9. Typically the parent sitting right there. So they're taking it in as well.
And I think one of the coolest things is you don't just work with individuals, you'll work with entire teams. Yeah, I know that
Yes.
John Perry at Nixa Football this year swears by your work. You get up early and go talk to the team at their team meetings. And of course, they went out and played for a state championship. I believe Marshfield Lady Jays basketball, correct?
Yes.
Among those, they went to the Final Four, I believe, this year. And how is your message or your approach? Is it different with a full team in a room versus that individual you may be doing a face-to-face or a Zoom call with?
I start off with the same principles, right? Because you got to start with yourself. And so making sure that each individual athlete's mindset is where it needs to be. But then, yes, in that team setting, I'm able to address teamwork and what does that look like? And how do you, the power of when every individual rises themselves, then collectively you're going to get the team to rise. And so that is the ultimate goal. And teamwork principles are able to be built in that. So I am able to take it to another level, when I'm working with a team.
Is it true or false that you put Jackson Cantwell in a trance and told him to pick Miami?
I had nothing to do with that.
I saw you at the announcement, and he would be, a perfect case study of the pressures of today's athlete on steroids, basically on super level, because
absolutely
of the calls and the contacts and the attention he had received and stuff. When you look at him and you had him in that room with Nixa Football, with your work with them, is it just kind of amazing that he is still sane after everything he went through?
Yeah, and you don't see a lot of emotion, out of him. And so I feel like he's a sponge taking it all in. But what I do know is that he's got incredible support through mom and dad at home, right? So his foundation is strong. And then the years that he's spent with Coach Perry and just what that program does to build, young people, mentally, as well as the physical game. So they kind of really touch on every gamut. But yeah, he would be the one that's absolutely completely been through it.
Well, and a 33 ACT as an 8th grader. I mean, there's a lot of wheels turning inside that head.
Yes, there is.
And we should point out that your scope of your business is not just here in the Ozarks, but you've had kids regionally as well, right?
Yes, actually, yeah. I work nationally just because I can be virtual. So just like this, work one-on-one with athletes all across the country.
What you have a new program coming up, I guess, this summer, or getting ready to start some sessions?
Yeah, so I am actually, my 8-week program has become pretty automated. And I made that change because I was having athletes trickle in. And when you start, when you need the work, you need the work. And so what I found was I'd have an athlete come in and I wasn't starting a program and, for another 2 or 3 weeks, but they needed it. So it really, it's actually going to be, launching within the next few days, my new website. They can get on, you can start the 8-week program right away. You still have access to me through group coaching calls, one-on-one coaching. So that program, again, that's automated. I've got a membership now, which helps keep athletes in it. Because once you go through that 8-week program, you can't just be done, right? And so it's a really low-end program. I call it Strong 365. It keeps us connected. It keeps you on top of your mindset and mental game so you don't fall off.
Is there a 911 number for you? I mean, if a kid has a meltdown at a night and mom or dad calls and says, Angie, we need you stat. How do you handle that? Is it the next day? What do you do in those cases?
I would say I have flexibility in my schedule, and I have had more than one call at 10 o'clock at night. I have weekend calls. So, when I'm working with athletes one-on-one, they kind of do end up with access to me. So
what is that initial meeting with you like? Is it kind of a discovery session for you almost, or how do you approach that?
It is with the athlete or with the parent?
Both.
Both, yeah. So
is it separate or is it the same time? Do you meet with them?
I have done it together, but a lot of times that initial call comes from the parent, like, this is what we've got going on. This is what we're seeing. They want a little bit better understanding what I do, what would that look like? And then, from there, then a lot of times I'll go ahead and have that conversation with the athlete. And obviously I want to connect with the athlete to start, and I want to hear them, I want to hear them out. So I listen a lot to begin with, and then I do give them tools right away to start working on and, get to work on the mindset. So
I think one of the coolest things is, you'll go out and support those athletes too. If you have an opportunity, go watch them play. And that probably helps you too, doesn't it? Get a feel for their skill level, their expectations, what's going on in the stands, maybe with mom and dad, because not gonna lie, mom and dad just might be part of the problem in some of these cases, right?
Yes.
Is that hard to tell them that? If you see that, is it hard for you to tell them as a client, hey, dad, pump the brakes here a little bit?
I have had that conversation. I will say that. I really encourage parents to go through my program with the athlete, even if it's separate, because I think that they will see some of that in what I'm saying to the athlete, because I address different styles of coaching, different styles of parenting, teammate issues. So I'm kind of touching on all of the challenges. So my hope is that parents see themselves in there. And then that also gives me an in to have that conversation with the parent as far as maybe where some of those challenges are coming from.
How were your parents when you were an athlete, and then how are you as a parent when your kids were coming up? What kind of grade would you give?
Yeah, well, my parents get an A. They were just, they were supportive. They were always there, and never had a lot of feedback other than, good job. And so they were just those supportive parents that you knew were going to be there. I don't know what I would have. My kids would have to grade me, right? I can't grade me. I tried to be the supportive parent. I probably offered more feedback than what my parents offered, especially if they were in, a sport that I had played, but also from a mindset standpoint, they've probably always kind of had me in their ear. So,
and it's important to note that the things that you teach them or try to get across to them are not things that just apply to athletics, but they'll apply to them in college and in their work life after that. And do you get calls from businesses too in this regard? Hey, we need some help. We need some motivation for our people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was 22 years in the corporate sales world as a sales manager. And I think too, the one thing I saw how much the mindset affected professionals and adults. And you absolutely could tell who had it and who didn't. And honestly, that's what I get most excited about. I feel like I am a a mindset, high performance coach, kind of disguised as, teaching these young athletes. But I know through and through, I'm teaching them skills that they're going to carry through their life. Mindset's not just a part of it. It's actually weaved through everything in your life.
So it's Monday morning, 6:30 a.m. I don't want to get up. I don't want to do it. It's Monday. What are you going to tell me?
Get up.
Get up.
My brain
paid for that. I paid you to tell me to get up. That's great.
No. we probably would have to take a look at why.
Deeper dive into that.
What's holding you back? Yeah, we would take a deeper dive into that. So, but it would be working on your mindset so that you become your own internal coach, where you don't just listen to what your brain wants to tell you, because our brains show up in a negative way. And so when you really develop that positive internal coach, you're able to override some of that negativity.
How many teams are you working with now, and are you open to taking on more teams?
I am open to taking on more teams. I've had, and I haven't really promoted teams a whole lot. I worked with 4 teams throughout the last year, 1 collegiate, the other high schools. But yes, I am open to taking in more teams. So those kind of just came to me organically. And so I may, make a bigger push for more teams in the future, because I do see the impact, right? And just, again, like how much it's needed. It lets me touch more kids at one time.
And is it a little different working with a 10-year-old as opposed to high school, as opposed to a college athlete, in terms of, I guess, how deep your message can become?
Yes, it is. Yeah. With those younger kids, I've found that 8-week program is, especially like 9, 10, 11, 8 weeks is a little bit too long. I can probably do about my first 3 weeks for that age group. And that kind of gives them enough to walk away with and get to work on.
So for You Are Strong, how can they find you and get a hold of you?
youarestrong.com, all spelled out. Pretty easy. So youarestrong.com. You can, set up a call with me through there. My number will be on there. My email's on there. I'm also on all social platforms. So hopefully I'm pretty easy to find.
And then the Chuck Wiley Foundation Facebook page and Chuck Wiley Athletic Foundation.com.
Yes. Yeah.
There are still spots available. It's a great tournament. The opening ceremonies are kind of like a circus-like kickoff in it for what you do with that opening night.
Yes, so much fun. We have the bunting contest, a home run derby. We've got cornhole going on, bounce houses. So yes, it's a lot of entertainment. We want it to be very family oriented. So it's a lot of fun for Friday night opening ceremonies. And one thing I didn't make a plug on, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw it out there real quick. We are still looking for sponsors and silent auction items. Okay. And all those proceeds go back to scholarshiping athletes in need. And that's how we do what we do. So right now, this tournament is our fundraiser. And so if anyone out there, has a heart to give back to young athletes, to keep them in the game, contact me for that as well.
Very good. Angie, always fun to catch up with you, see you on the sidelines at games, and let's do it again, okay?
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Angie Wiley with You Are Strong and the Chuck Wiley Athletic Foundation does some great work there. And if you're a parent and the cost of travel and youth sports these days, it's just a great service they're providing there. So we're going to transition into our next guest here shortly, so stay tuned. Back with the second part of our podcast today. I want to welcome in a couple of representatives from the American Cancer Society of the Southwest Missouri office, Bree Huff, who is the Senior Developmental Director, and then Cross Kubik, who is the ambassador for the first annual ACS Southwest Missouri Golf Classic coming up on June 2nd at Millwood Golf and Racket Club. Cross and Bree, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Cross has got an amazing story. If you're a sports fan in the Ozarks, you've heard it probably in the past, but the kid has defeated cancer twice, at age 2 and then at age 17 when it came back and in the form of leukemia. Rallied to play baseball at Kickapoo, and in his last season as a senior was actually on the mound for their district championship game win over Nixa. Now plays golf at Drury University, and Cross, are you graduating soon, or are you already graduated? I know you said pre-dental is in the works.
Yes, I got one more year of undergrad, and then on to dental school.
Well, and I was thinking about this, the fact that I'm a dental wuss. I just I dread it like everybody, like most of America. I can see a time when Dr. Kubik looks at that person in a chair and says, "Suck it up, Buttercup. I survived cancer twice." Is that going to be your go-to for people when they're being wimpy in the dental chair?
I'm probably going to try to avoid that. I don't know if that's the best patient care tactic, but I'll save that for you when you come in.
That'd be great. That ought to be that's probably one of the classes you'll go through in dental school, is how to handle extremely nervous, and somebody else who was never nervous, because I watched her play basketball, Bree Huff. She was Bree Anton in high school at Ozarks. Ice in her veins, as long as it didn't involve, conditioning or things like that, right, Bree?
Or a 6-minute mile. That's when I
6-minute mile runs, yeah. But we're going to talk a little bit about the new event, the golf tournament coming up June 2nd at Millwood. Millwood always puts on just a great event and has been very helpful with this. Bree, I know you're still looking for some teams, so kind of give us the details of the tournament.
Yeah, so the tournament is going to be on Monday, June 2nd. We are going to be doing check-in at 8:00, but the great thing about that is you get greeted then with an assortment of breakfast options. So we're going to have some breakfast sandwiches, breakfast burritos. We also have a Bloody Mary bar. And then once you check in, you will then actually be able to have a shopping experience with some sunglasses. So our golfer gifts for this tournament include being able to pick out a pair of sunglasses from Oakley or Ray-Bans with the sunglass vendor that partners with Millwood. So that's a really, really cool and different thing, I think, compared to a lot of different golf tournaments out there. Then we have a 9:30 shotgun start, 18 holes, usual good old fun round of golf. And then what we'll be doing from there is come back in. Millwood's going to serve an amazing lunch. They'll just be doing an assortment of all their different amazing food. Cross will then be getting up and sharing some of his story and testimony, and there probably won't be a dry eye in there. And then we will, determine the winner and have just a really good time and raise some good money for a good cause.
Cross, you were in the same meeting I was this week, and I thought the highlight was when one of the American Cancer Society members, that is in a high-profile position, asked if they can actually use a real shotgun for the start. Did you chuckle a little bit at that, like I did internally, or not?
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah, especially if it had anything to do with Bree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Bree, there will not be a real shotgun, but maybe for this one they can.
I'm learning.
And let you shoot it. That would be great. So it's a 4-person scramble. That's true. Yeah, they did have a shotgun in that, right? So yeah. Your audio is breaking up just a hair there. Can you tell us, and again, it's a 4-person scramble at Millwood on June 2nd, morning tee time, or shotgun start.
Yep.
How can people sign up now at this point? Because you'll take teams all the way up till, probably May 30th.
Before that point.
What's that?
I said we'll probably take teams up until, May 30th would be probably a good call on that.
And how do they sign up?
We currently, the easiest way I think would be to find our Facebook profile, because the link to say it right here, I think, is a little bit harder to put out there. Sure. So if you just look up our Facebook page, it's the ACS Golf Classic Southwest Missouri, SWMO. From there, there's a link. It's called GiveSmart is the website, and it takes you right there to sign up for a foursome team. Or they can also reach out to you and you'd be able to direct them as well.
Yeah. And do they have a phone number they can call if they have more information, or you'll take some last minute sponsors as well? What's the phone number?
It would be my phone number. Or you could also call Millwood directly. Do you want me to give that out here?
Sure.
Okay. Directly for me, it'd be 417-773-8070. And then you'd have to just probably Google search Millwood Golf, because I don't have it off the top of my head, but they'll be able to direct you immediately to to the golf tournament.
Yeah. And I've known the Schumacher family for forever. And this tournament will be an annual event. And I know that for people who remember Dan and his crew, they used to put on the Fall Classic out there with some Tour Pro type players or Tour Pros that came in and everything. This will be kind of that type of a higher level event annually, where you're going to get prizes like Ray-Bans and Oakleys. You're going to have a great lunch. You're going to have an experience. You're not going to get shirts that are going to be in a garage sale for in 6 months. I mean, you're going to get some good stuff, and the best part of all, it goes to a great cause. And talk about ACS and what it does to help assist people like Cross that have been through cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. So while people think that with ACS being so big corporate wide that everything just rolls up to one big dollar amount and they don't ever actually see their money do anything, we do millions of dollars a year nationwide in cancer research specifically, but also to drill it down to a to a local level. We have Hope Lodge facilities all throughout the nation, but we have 2 actually, luckily, in Missouri, Kansas City, and St. Louis. That alone is funded through the money raised here by having people stay as long as they need, as long as they're getting cancer treatment up in the St. Louis or Kansas City area. That will then provide stay for free for the cancer patient and their caregiver. That saves thousands of dollars when you're talking about some people having to be up there for weeks, if not months. So our Hope Lodge facilities get funded through this money raised. We also have road to recovery programs, which is where it's an Uber type situation for rural cancer patients that need to then be driven into their appointments. So that also funds types of programs like that. And then we also have our local hospital grants. So obviously we work then closely with Cox and Mercy here. And what that does is we give them grants that can turn around and provide transportation grants for their cancer patients as well.
We're having some audio problems with you there. You sound like Kermit the Frog a little bit. So I think that we got your information. I'm going to take you out now. And again, call Bree, look up the ACS page on Facebook, or call Millwood for last minute teams and sponsorship. Bree, thanks a lot. I think I've always wanted to silence Bree, and that's probably the best way to do it, Cross, right?
Pretty easy, just a click of a button, I guess.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, your story's been well documented. What you went through, and back on the field in baseball, your junior and senior year, and then golf now at Drury. It's been chronicled in a book. Tell us about you wrote a book about it, and where can people get it? Do you have a copy there? You can show the cover.
I have one sitting right here. Here's a copy. It's called The Power of the Cross. And it kind of tells me and my family's testimony throughout both bouts with cancer and kind of everything in between, what we went through as a family and how we kind of rallied together, and with our close family and with our community, and how we came out of it victorious by God's blessing and by the physician's blessings at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. You can get that on my website at crosskubik.com and on Amazon if you just search Cross Kubik or The Power of the Cross.
And I know it's in the Kindle library, so people, if you got a Kindle and you want to download, it's a great read there. So I know you got some amazing parents, Brian and Ashley. I joked that I saw your dad miss some blocks as a Kickapoo chief because he was checking out the dancing girl over there to make sure she was okay and stuff. But, for them to find out when you're, 17, 18 months old, and what they went through, I know that probably is only, and then to do it again when you were 17, that probably just brought your family closer together to the point where even your bone marrow transplant was partially from your sister, correct?
Yeah, it was the first time, like you said, it kind of brought my parents closer together because, it was just them and their sick kid, they had to come together and they had to fight what was going on. And fast forward to my second cancer bout, we were all in it. I had both of my sisters there. I was old enough to, know what was going on in my body. And my sisters knew what was going on, and they knew that, it wasn't really good. And my middle sister, Creighton, who was 12 at the time, stepped up big time to be my donor. Both my sisters were both not a 10 out of 10 match to be a transplant donor. I only had one 10 out of 10 match in the entire world, and he was from Germany. And unfortunately, it was in the middle of COVID when all this was going on, so he couldn't come to the States to donate. And so they had to, a little bit of a fire drill looking for another option, and they found Creighton, who, like I said, was 12 at the time. They've never used a minor as a donor, especially one that wasn't a 10 out of 10 match. And St. Jude was thankfully one of the only hospitals in the country that specializes in haplo transplants, which is non 10 out of 10 matches transplants. And that when they're starting to prep her for giving or being a donor, they give her pretty painful shots to bring out the good cells out of the bone marrow in order to take it from her. And on that first day of collecting cells, they were looking for about 5 million cells. And the first day she gave 30 million cells. Wow. So they were able to pick out the best ones to give to me. And the rest is history. I mean, it worked out perfectly. I had no signs of GVHD, which is graft versus host disease. That's kind of when the donor cells don't take well with the recipient. And I had no signs of that. It worked out perfectly, and I had no problems whatsoever. So it was fantastic, and it was a blessing for sure.
And again, we mentioned playing golf now at Drury University. Golf it's kind of a fun thing for you in high school because you were an excellent baseball player. And like most dads, it's like, okay, you play baseball during baseball season, don't mess up that swing.
Yeah.
I said that to both my sons, and we were probably all wrong on that. But then it became something that clearly you wanted to pursue in college. And has that been a rewarding experience for you, being a part of the college golf team at Drury?
Yeah, absolutely. I had never been a part of a golf, team and group like this before in a competitive setting. So it's definitely a different vibe than, going out and playing leisure golf, but it's a whole different view, and it's insanely fun. I've made some great friends, had great connections, and I do enjoy. I love playing it. I love going out every afternoon, and, just being competitive with the guys, and for sure, it's been rewarding. Absolutely.
Well, you'll be in your element on Monday, June 2nd, playing golf as part of the tournament, telling your story at the luncheon to those for the post-event luncheon. I can imagine the reaction was very positive when ACS reached out to you and asked you to be an ambassador. Was that a no-brainer? Yes, I'm in.
Yes, absolutely. Me and my parents vowed to give anything and everything to anything related to the word cancer. Any program, any charity, anything along those lines, we're in 100%. A funny story, or not so funny, but a story from when I was going through cancer the first time. Both of my parents agreed that if I get out of this terrible diagnosis and make it out even alive, that they will give everything possible to, push forward this great cause and this great charity to benefit kids and people in the United States who are going through the worst times in their lives, and families who are going through the worst times in their lives, for sure.
And I think I read when you were 2, the odds of survival were about 10% chance, correct?
Yes, sir. 10%.
30% when you were 17. Is that about the right?
Yes, and it would have been 0% if I didn't get a bone marrow transplant. So wow. It's a blessing for sure that everything worked out the way it did. And like we talked about before, Creighton being able to be a donor when that wasn't technically allowed was another insane blessing for all of us, for sure.
Did it make you less likely to argue with your sister after that?
Actually, no. We were hoping it would, but no. Sadly, I guess.
I mean, you got to keep the brother-sister relationship like it's supposed to be, right?
You can't mess that up.
Yeah. Well, Cross, thank you for coming on, and I know the ACS and the Golf Classic appreciates your participation and support, and we'll see you on June 2nd at Millwood.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Scott.
You betcha. Cross Kubik, again, two-time cancer survivor. He will be the featured speaker and ambassador at the American Cancer Society Southwest Missouri Golf Classic on Monday, June 2nd. As Bree Anton said, and apologies for the audio difficulties we were having there at the end, but can still enter in that. There's still a couple team spots open, some sponsorships available. Find their page on Facebook for the ACS Golf Classic to take care of that. Been a fun podcast, a rewarding podcast when you can help causes like these two we've talked about. And it wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Fast Break Sports, located on South Campbell. They are your home for all things sports cards, collectibles. If you've had some precious inventory keepsakes you've had of cards for years and you need them protected, the guys at Fast Break Sports can take care of you in that regard. They've got new cards, used cards for sale. They can help you get your cards graded. And they've got a great selection of team sports memorabilia, things for your man cave. Just a fun place to go hang out if you're a sports fan. Fast Break Sports at 3101 South Campbell. Also, the Pitch Pizza and Pub in the Southern Hills Shopping Center off East Sunshine near Highway 65. Brian Bevel and his crew. Great place to go have pizza, calzones, their appetizers, including those awesome smoked wings. Anything on the menu, grab a frosty beverage and watch some sports on their TVs in there. And if you're needing a meeting space for a special event, a networking event, what have you, give Brian a call because the Pitch Pizza and Pub has the space and the resources to take care of your group. And lastly, our newest sponsor, Thompson Sales. Of course, one near and dear to my heart since I've been buying cars and trucks from Thompson since the early 1980s when I got into Springfield. And the reason is because they treat you like family, whether it's the sales or the service department. The Thompson boys have been doing so since 1919. They're at 1555 East Independence. Go in and see Miles and Tyler and the gang there at Thompson Sales because the Thompson boys are dealing when it comes to Buicks, GMCs, and Cadillacs there at Thompson Sales. That's going to do it this week. Again, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Around the Ozarks Sports Team.